I'm Ondine Rarey, and I'm actually one of three co-director producers on the film Sally, the documentary Sally with an exclamation point. Yes, and my co-directors are York Fokole and Deborah Craig. And Deborah Craig was sort of our front person, sort of the main director. And I was in charge of story and editing for the most part, and York did everything else.
It seems like a fair distribution of tasks, you know.
Well, we're all very different, and our talents and skills were very complementary. So it was a great partnership.
This film did something that I love about the best nonfiction art, be it a book or a film, and that is when I got to the end, I had a list of books and documentaries that I didn't wanted to go out and watch. In fact, I ordered a copy of Wanderground from eBay.
You did?
It's due tomorrow, so I can't wait.
Oh, that's so lovely. It's hard to find. It's out of print.
But I love that about the film is that, the documentaries that you incorporate, Super Dyke and
yes, Barbara Hammer's film, Super Dyke. Oh, I love to hear that.
How did you get access to those? Were you aware of them ahead of time, or was this during the course of the program?
That's a great question. We were very much aware of Sally's book. And one of the harder things about working on the film was figuring out how to incorporate the book, whether to, and then how to incorporate the book into the film. Archival was a kind of a different problem and a different issue that we dealt with much later. And at that point, we just were searching high and low for anything we could possibly find. And that's when I became aware of Super Dyke, I believe. It was a huge search for archival materials.
The film, and I guess this is representative of Sally's life, but it balances the idea of separatism with the need for community. And I especially loved the scene at the kitchen table with the trio there, with Dorothy and Adrian and Cynthia.
We called them the oracles, and sometimes the sirens. Yes, there's a woman in the film who says, she asks, was Sally a separatist? And then she laughs and says Sally wasn't separate from anything. So she's a funny separatist, and she was an ambivalent separatist. She loved a lot of men and had a hard time being as hardcore, I think, as some of her students were and some of the other people around her were. And I think she got a lot of criticism for that was sort of painful. On the other hand, she was the one who would sort of throw the gauntlet and, push that whatever you want to call it, boundary or whatever, real far. Sally wrote an article called "The Future, If There Is One, Is Female." And one of the things she explores is, well, what if the male population were reduced to 10% of the world's population? And so she would say these really extreme things often. But I think a lot of people have told us, and I think it's also my feeling, that her desire was to be provocative.
Right.
And so she was challenging people to think. So yes, ambivalent, complicated separatism. And then in terms of community, I feel like Sally came out of the womb looking for community. And one of her greatest talents was finding it and creating it, from our earliest days at the women's college that she attended. I mean, people told us that she was very much a part of that community. And then it just goes on from there. Whatever world she landed in, she became a big part of that community, and then also found ways to bring the community together even more.
The cultural touchstone, I think, that people who have never heard of Sally before will be able to grab onto here is the film Milk and her erasure from it. It certainly had echoes of what's going on in Washington right now in this attempt to erase queer people.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that. That's an interesting idea.
I mean, I don't know if it was this week, but recently name Harvey Milk off a battleship because
I know. I
then
know. And my first thought was, well, he was in the Navy, but there were other ships that they were taking names off of, like Harriet Tubman. Like, what? But then I thought, well, maybe those people don't want their names on battleships or whatever those ships were. So, but yes, absolutely. There's erasure happening all over the place right now. I hadn't made that connection. That's really interesting.
the way you present it in the film is very effective, where you're showing the footage, the archival footage of the debate with the two of them sitting there, and then at the same time the clip from the film,
Yep.
the Sean Penn film, and the absence just is overwhelming. That where is she? Why is she not here?
One of my favorite parts of the film, I think, because it's such a visual demonstration of how I feel that media forms our ideas of history. Mm-hmm. For a lot of people, when you see the film about whatever it is, that becomes almost like a memory, and it becomes the way that we think of that event. And so for anybody watching Milk, it becomes something that was just Harvey Milk. And that it happens all the time, especially for women, I think, and for other minorities as well, I'm sure. But it's always been something that was very important to me. And it was a wonderful opportunity to show that so visually in this film.
Bayard Rustin being sort of wiped from the Dr. King story. And
yeah.
Makes you want to, I hope it makes viewers want to look more critically at media, be aware of the decisions that these people are making in presenting images to you.
Exactly.
As a trans woman, I'm watching this film about this Sally Gerhardt, who is a figure and a force in the beginning of what will branch off to be gender critical feminism. We have seen that leads to the exclusion of trans women. If you were willing or interested in talking about that, I just wanted to ask.
Absolutely. And we were very aware of that during the making of the film. And it was a question that we asked ourselves, whether we needed to address it directly in the film in some way. The reality is that Sally herself was not a part of that movement or that branch of the movement. And so it felt to us like we would be forcing something onto the film. We pretty much tried to include things in the film that came naturally out of Sally's experience. And nothing that we ran across, nothing anyone said, nothing Sally said herself addressed that issue. With one exception, and it's actually in the film, there's a moment in an interview that she did for Word Is Out. And she talks about how from the moment we're born, every institution in this society, tries to put us in one camp or the other, whether it's, male or female, and it's very rigid. So I taught editing at Chapman University, and for a couple semesters, I brought Sally footage into the classroom and let the students work with it. The issue that you're bringing up came up in class, if I remember correctly. And so I asked people to sort of look at Sally and talk about that. And one of the students picked out this bite about how from the moment we're born, every institution in this society tries to make us be, either rigidly male or rigidly female. And some of the students felt like that was her answer. But again, we didn't run across anything in her story or in any of the interviews we did that spoke to that issue. It just wasn't a part of who Sally was. Yeah. She was a very accepting person. She was not rigid. She was not judgmental. And also in the Women's Land community that they had, one of the members was a trans woman by coincidence.
Oh, really? So, at Willits there?
Yes.
Huh.
Not a big part of the group that, hung out together a lot, but definitely on the land and, partnering with them. I also feel like so much of this stuff, it's not about sexuality. It is about gender. And that was absolutely true, during Sally's heyday. I feel like part of the reason she made such a big splash was that she was butch, and
Yeah.
she made being butch, cool. And it's interesting to me that I feel like we're still fighting about gender. And so it was about gender then, and it's about gender now. It's just that I think we've pushed it forward so that we're arguing about different aspects of gender, different things about gender.
I
Yes.
wanted to give you a chance to shout out anybody. You mentioned your other directors. Anybody else you wanted to give a shout out to?
Just wanted to say again that this was a film that was very much made by 3 co-producer directors. It's interesting because Sally was so collaborative, and we were also very collaborative, and that felt fantastic, both because I'd always wanted to work that way, but also because it was such a big part of who Sally was. So my partners in crime, Deborah Craig and York Fokele, are very dear friends of mine, but also I don't think we could have made the film without any one of the 3 of us. And that's one of the things I'm proudest of about this film. Also want to give a shout out to Brad Dujmovic, the composer, who I've never worked with anyone else and never want to work with anyone else ever again. I just absolutely love what he did with the film. And Maddie Montoya, who's the animator, who is exquisitely talented.